And now, the most trusted name in radio, serving the Treasure Coast for over 30 years, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
All right, well, we have the Professor Haridopolis in the studio, better known as Congressman Haridopolis. How you doing?
Doing great. Great to see you as always, Rhett, and the mayor of the airways. I walk in today and I see the great parking lot sign. It's perfect. I love it.
He was impressed.
I took a picture and everything. I'm like, I'm with the mayor of the airways today. I love it. Yeah.
One time I was at a stop sign here in town. You know, he's been on my show a number of times, from America's Most Wanted.
John
Walsh.
Yeah, Walsh, yeah.
So at that time I had one of those big Mercedes. It's sort of like a station wagon. And I was in the back seat while my gal was driving the front. So anyway, he was at the red light too, so I rolled down the window and said, "Hey, John." He goes, "Wow, impressive. You got your own driver now, huh?"
I thought it'd be one of those Grey Poupon commercials. Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon?
Excuse me, do you have a Grey Poupon for me, please, huh?
Perfect, yeah.
So last time I was with you was when we were face to face. You've been on the show a number of times lately.
Sure.
Thank you very much for making consistent appearances here. But you were the
President of the Senate.
President of the Senate, and then you took a little time off after that. I'm glad that you got back into the ring. I suppose you made a great choice. I don't know how this all works, but we're all glad you're in there, and you're doing a bang-up job. You just came from the county commissioners. So for Vero Beach people, what was discussed? What are the concerns?
Well, look, it's very important, most importantly, that I listen to what's going on in the community. We don't want to be detached like too many of these politicians become in Washington, D.C. So I'm consistently down here in Indian River County listening to county commissioners, city commissioners, going to a lot of meetings, holding town hall meetings. We had one just recently in Johns Island. I mean, it's just really important you keep your ear to the ground. And what we've asked the county and the cities to say, look, if you've got some funding projects you need some help on, well, let's be a teammate. Let's work together. It shouldn't all come from Washington or all come from the locals. It should be a win-win situation. And so while they had a need for a library, we took care of that. We also had, of course, all of us were worried about the Indian River Lagoon. We were able to get record funding, or $14 million to help clean up the lagoon. It's just a quality of life issue. And when you stay close to those people who are elected locally, it gives you a better perspective on how you can help from Washington.
Wonderful. So how did you first get into politics? Where was the seed? Was it a parent or an uncle? Or?
Well, my dad was actually an FBI agent, undercover, right? And he was one of the people who went after the bad guys, so to speak. And I had some great history teachers as well. And you can't help but fall in love with the story of America, right?
Yes.
The underdog story, and now the world power, and how we arrived where we are today, standing on the shoulders of giants. And it was always just very appealing to me. And so I became a history teacher, as you know, and eventually people convinced me to run for office, and serving first in the legislature. And I took some time off in between. Of course, a professor at University of Florida, wrote some books. But I've always had a passion for public service, and I'm honored to be now the congressman from our area.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job. So tell me something. What did you teach at the college level?
I taught history and political science.
Oh, wonderful.
And what was great about it, what I really liked about it after I got elected, is that it's so much different than the book version, right? You have these political science teachers who only understand the book. Well, I was the guy who was actually in office, and I was able to tell them kind of the real world of what a campaign's like, what it's like to be in office. And one of the programs a Democrat and I actually worked on, Bob Graham, remember the former governor, U.S. Senator, and he hired me at the University of Florida because he wanted real world experience for the students at University of Florida. So I would teach on campus in Gainesville in the fall when I was in the legislature. And then in the spring, we had about 100 applicants. 15 got selected. They came to Tallahassee with me. They would actually take classes with me from 7 to 8 in the morning. And then they'd work in the Capitol in Tallahassee for a legislator or for a lobbyist, or for the governor, or for the press, whatever their career interest might be. And they got to do that job firsthand. And I loved it because I got to interact with the students before I had engaged with everybody else. It was a great hands-on program. And now a lot of those students are in state or local government because they had that real-world experience.
It's amazing how that can change a life. You know, Doris Kearns Goodwin, the very famous historian, she's been on my show a couple of times, and we had some great conversations. You know, maybe sometime in the future, I mean, we could sit down together and maybe spend some quality time on those things, on history. I know as you get older, as I am, have a keen appetite for history. Yet you're a young guy. How old are you now?
55.
55,
Yeah.
you know, so you're about 17, 15 years, whatever it is, younger than me. I would like to ask you this, because obviously I wonder I know you want to say you're focused on what you're doing now, and thank you that you are, and you're doing a bang-up job. Where do you see yourself in the future? Do you want to be a senator? Do you want to be the governor? Do you wanna...
I think one is I love what I do now. I mean, I love being in the House
What
of
do you love
Representatives.
about it?
Well, it's just the action that takes place in the House. Senate's a lot slower moving body, as you know.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books is called Master of the Senate. Robert K. wrote a fantastic book about LBJ. I'm not a big fan of his policies, but he's a remarkable politician.
Yeah.
And one of the books I use at the University of Florida. But what I love about the House is they're so dynamic, and we have such a small majority right now to get things done. It's really challenging. So one of my goals is to move up in the leadership in the House of Representatives. I'm very fortunate as a freshman member. I actually chair a committee already, that being the Space Committee, which is so important to our community here. And I'm also what's called the Financial Services Committee, which is what they call an A committee. There's 4 A committees, A, B, C, D, where we are the ones who deal with the stock market, the bond market, the crypto market, the insurance market, the banks, all the big financial drivers, and so I'm on that committee, and they already named me what's called the whip of the committee. My job is to make sure we get the votes to pass certain legislation. So I love what I do, and I think it's like my kids always ask me, you know, what do you think, Dad? What do you think of this? I said, look, if you go to work happy, you're going to be really successful. The money eventually comes, but when you go to work happy like you've done for over 30 years here, you're like psyched to go to work.
I've been retired since I was 40.
There you go.
Remember Tommy Lasorda,
Of
the
course,
manager? One of the first interviews I did with him right on the field, and at the end of it, he said, you know, if you're not doing what you want to do, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to others. Don't be a chef just for money, because your food is going to taste terrible. If you love to cook, that love will be in it. If you're a mom, your dad, your grandma, you love to cook, the love will be in it. Whatever you do, love it. And that's the smoother path. What do they used to say? The smoother path, the easier path, the least resistance.
The path of least resistance.
Yeah,
That's right.
so-
Look, I'm the same way. I love being in the classroom. And I love what I do now. And my wife's like, this is great. You wake up in the morning happy. This is fantastic. And you're excited to take on these challenges every day. And needless to say, there's a lot of challenges in this country right now. And I'm interacting with the president, of course, the leader of the House, the leader of the Senate. And look, I even get along with the Democrats on issues that are nonpartisan. There are some issues like space, AI, some environmental issues, transportation issues. I can't get in a debate with them about Republican versus Democrat thing. You already kind of spoken for. But as the chairman of the Space Committee, I'm always trying to find that common ground because we're all Americans. Yeah. And it gets frustrating when everything becomes partisan.
So I was one of the first people to get behind Trump in this area. Matter of fact, from the sheriff, who wasn't in his corner at first, from other people that are very well-to-do and influencers, and they were all, nah, you know, they're going for the guy from Texas or whatever it was. So one of these days, I might hit you up. I'd like to I want to meet this guy Trump. You know, he's one. I got Carter, I got Ford, I got the Bushes. I want to meet this guy. He's such a colorful character. I think there's going to be all kinds of books written about this guy when it's over. You know,
and rightfully so. Look, he's changed America, and I think we are in a much better. We're in a much. That's a great point. We're in a much better position than we were a year ago. I mean, think about it. The border's secure. Yes. People have more money in their pockets because there's finally a tax cut for the middle class. Where we have respect abroad like we did not have a year ago, and you're seeing like this dynamic change happening. And what I love about Trump, I was talking with one of the Fox reporters yesterday because they were with the president yesterday, and it was her chance for the first time to fly on Air Force One. Oh. And I've had that honor as well. And I said, isn't Trump the most remarkable guy? She said, what he did, he bought us food for the plane so we could all hang out. And I wouldn't call him a maitre d', but I would say he's a guy who understands the hospitality business. Yeah. What can I get for you? When I was on Air Force One with him, he must ask me 5 times, can I get you anything, Mike? I'm like, I'm good, Mr. President. I'm really okay.
You know, I have noticed that. Well, Jesus said, the greatest among you shall be the servant of the rest.
Right.
And I've noticed that about certain people like Mick Jagger. You're sitting there, the guy's doing an audition, and we're going to take a break. Can I get you a cup of tea? This is the kind of attitude they have. Right. And actually, we're happier when we're serving each other, you know. I think it's the law in Florida, but I know it's the law. I spend some time in the summers up in Vermont. And when you step off the curb, you know, you stop for those people. And usually my life, like everybody else's, it's me, mine. I'm in a rush. I got to get to the dentist. I'm late. But in Vermont, when somebody steps out, this little old lady, you go, no, Rhett, doesn't matter if you're late to the dentist. She's first. She's a pedestrian. And, you know, then the other lady who has a baby, and then the old man. you wait patiently. And I think it's birthed something in me that I think it's the law in Florida, but I want to see that enacted even more and more, that we stop for pedestrians and become more pedestrian friendly. What do you think of that?
Well, it's one of the things we try to do, especially on the beach side. I mean, we actually put up those different areas because, again, people are not anxious to get to the beach. They got their surfboard or their boogie board or maybe their chair to get some sun, and you got to be really eyes open. That's why we actually reduce some of the speed rates on the state level. That's what they control A1A, and it's one of the things they do. But to your point, what I love is people think that politicians are selfish, and that's a very common thing because you see some selfish politicians like Schumer's, like but I've always worked from the mentality: the more unselfish you are, the more power you acquire. Meaning that if you're helping other people get elected, if you're raising money from, if you elevate them when there's a story, it's a good thing. And I think that's when mentality that I think we need to have more and more of is the more unselfish are, the better things are. And it's not a cliche when it's better to give than receive, because it's pretty exciting when you see someone else light up and they get that present or that gift or that elevation.
Yeah, and I remember there was a doctor in town here. He couldn't get his Medicare or Medicaid number, whatever it is, and I made a call to the Congress office, your predecessor. And he and his wife were concerned. She's from Italy. I forget where he's from, and the two boys, and they couldn't get paid for 9 months. I called the congressman the next day. She invites me. She gives me hugs and kisses and said, "We got the number we needed." So you can call your congressman and get it done. What defines the responsibility of a congressman like you, Congressman Haridopolis? I almost called you Senator Haridopolis.
Well, I tell you, it's that sense where, first of all, of course, how you vote. And I'm very transparent how I vote. Every week there's email updates. I voted on this, and this is why I voted for it. I think it's really important that you are transparent. The other one is that you just brought up, it's frustrating with the bureaucracy. Sometimes it's hard to access it. Even when you've earned the benefits, like you have with Social Security or Medicare, there's benefits you earn after a lifetime of work. So one of the things we take great pride in, you got, of course, one of my folks here today with me on my staff, is that we want to make sure people who have earned benefits from the military, Social Security, Medicare, whatever it might be, that they get the service they deserve. And so last year we returned over $12.5 million to people who are entitled to certain things that they've earned. And this year we're on the even better pace because we're meeting the needs of the individual. But what is frustrating to me is that it shouldn't have to ever come to me. The bureaucracy should be running smoothly enough that they don't need to call my office, but I'm that backstop to make sure they get it. Yeah. And then the other thing, as we briefly talked about, is there are needs in this community that we can't afford with this current tax base, right? That things that locals would like to have, but they can't afford. So they'll come to me and say, hey, we need more money for the Indian River Lagoon, or we need more money for the Fellsmere Library, or we need more money for beach restoration. So what I say is that, hey, I'll help, but everyone's got to put some in. Yeah. It can't all come from me.
Get some skin in the game.
Exactly. And that's what we try to do.
Now, of course, the popularity of Florida is exploding, especially with what happened in New York City. I'm a former New Yorker.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Oh, yeah.
Where you born?
I was born in Huntington, but I grew up in Garden City.
Really? Well, I'm from Poughkeepsie originally, then lived in Albany, Schenectady, Detroit before I came down here. Been down here 33 years. Fell in love with the state. Of course, I was here before Indian River Boulevard existed. There was no mall. There was nothing. So anyway, there's a real influx. How are we going to handle that as far as roads and the overpopulation that's coming our way? And with all these storage units going up on every corner, these smart guys, these billionaires who are building these things, they know the flood's about to come.
Well, especially with the craziness in New York City, Mondami, et cetera. Yeah. And people are voting with their feet. I did the same thing. But it used to be you vote with your feet because it was warmer down here in the winter. Yeah. Now you're coming down here because there's no state income tax. There's no crazy amount of money being spent by the government. I mean, think about it. New York spends as much as the entire state of Florida. And for that matter, the state of New York, which is actually a smaller population. City. Yeah, and then the other part is that here's New York State that has a lower population than Florida. Their budget's twice as large as the Florida budget, but we don't have the crime problem like they do in New York and some of the challenges, let alone the traffic of New York. This is where everybody wants to live. What the good news is as these new folks are coming down as a conservative, you've seen the number of people who are registered Republican has gone up dramatically. To give you a little stat, Rhett, when Ron DeSantis was elected governor back in 2018, there were 400,000 more registered Democrats in our state. That's shocking, right? Because we're a pretty Republican state now. Now, roughly 8 years later, there are 1.5 million more registered Republicans. That's a 2 million person swing.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's good news. Thanks for that.
It is.
Good news,
Yeah.
man.
I think it's good news.
Because I was afraid they were going to bring down the Dems from here.
That's the thing, is the people are voting with their feet. The people who are more liberal are stayed in New York. The people who are more conservative, I'm going to get the heck out of here, especially with the realities of COVID.
And don't we have a great state?
Oh, yeah.
This is just a fabulous state. So what's uppermost on your mind? Now, for instance, of course, I don't know if we want to talk about current events. We're all a little nervous about what's going on in the Mideast. I think we finally, you and I have hung out with a lot of the other people, the predecessors to the current president, and now they sort of pale in comparison as far as being assertive. I mean, we all know that Trump can come off kind of bombastic. Like, for instance, I interviewed General Colin Powell, and we had a great time like you and I are having. And I liked him. And I said, I'll stand on the street corner for you if you run for the presidency. Well, he decided not to because, his wife had been in a mental institution. They're afraid the press was going to drag her over the coals. He was a gentleman. But had he been the president, but, when he died, the next day, Trump, is saying something awkwardly kind of not that great about him, I don't know why he does these things, and yet privately, everybody says like you do. He serves people. He'll get up and get you a fork. He'll get you your food. He's a real giver.
He really is.
What is this contentious side?
I think that's the New Yorker in him. That everything's got to be a fight or a haggle, right? I mean, you see him all the time, makes his big statement, and then he works to negotiate it down. It's kind of like, I'm not going to pay one nickel over X amount for this car, and then you adjust, right? Yeah. It seems like he does the same, but getting to this current situation, for almost my entire lifetime, we've had a problem with Iran. They chant death to America. They've killed thousands. Death to Israel. They've killed thousands of Americans, even more, of course, Israelis. And we all know about October 7th, that horrific barbaristic attack, and finally the chickens have come home to roost, where these people who are oppressing their own countrymen. Remember, this regime before this war began killed over 30,000 of their own citizens, and these citizens don't enjoy the Second Amendment rights that we have, which is the right to bear arms. So it's a one-way slaughter. And these folks who have fueled all of this terrorism in the region, they're the ones who are been doing all these nefarious things in the region. And finally, we realize that they're going to do even more if we don't stop them now. And it's going to be a challenging, weeks or months, whatever it takes to knock down their ability to create havoc. But, we are doing it. And look what's happened. The nations around Iran have had enough of Iran. They're siding with the United States because they know they're a terrorist state.
And then you've got, of course, this other faction of the Democrats, the liberals, that are like little puppies. They're nipping at the heels of the person who's walking. I don't know what that is. There's always got to be somebody out there contesting it. But he's doing a great job. Where he came out of nowhere. It's like amazing. I don't know if he had plans all his life or it's just fell this way, but he seems to be God's choice. Now, Haridopolis, my wife, of course, is Greek, and you're Greek, right?
Yes, sir.
And so Greek Orthodox, and your upbringing was Greek. So don't you feel like, that the Lord's hand has been in Donald Trump becoming our president? I think I see his man slowly converting, too. He said, religion is awake again. Well, of course, well, anyway, what do you think of all that?
Well, look, I think that he recognized some of the mistakes he's made in his past. Like we all have, right?
Who's without sin?
Exactly. And that's why we're blessed by the grace of God, right? When you think about it, I've made so many mistakes as well, and I've been very blessed throughout my life. And I think that he's looking back and saying, what can I give back? Clearly, he has put his life on the line for this job, as we literally found out almost in Pennsylvania. And we know about the attacks where they try to put him in jail for a very long time as well. The heavy hand of government like we've never seen. And so here he is said, I'm going to do a few things as president. I'm going to secure this border. There are 10 million people that came across the border. That's nonsense.
That's crazy.
He said that we're going to remove all these criminals, not only just people that came here, but people who did these dastardly things once here. And then he said, I saw what happened in Israel. We're gonna rectify that situation. And we see this evil dictator down in Venezuela. We knocked him out. And he said also what is primary to me is the big differentiator between a Republican and Democrat in my mind is this, and I'm watching it firsthand now in Washington, not just as a historian. The Democrats' basic philosophy, in my opinion, is give us your money and your power. We know what's best for you. It's very parental
Arrogance,
state.
self-righteousness.
And so my take on it is, let's give people more of their own money back that they earned so they can take care of their needs. I don't know what your individual needs are, Rhett, but you do. And so if you have the resources to try to handle those, you'll do it. There's some things you can't do, for example, roads, or maybe try to clean up their waterway on your own. That's my job in the government. But let people keep more of their own money, and they'll make some good decisions. And with that comes responsibility.
Like NPR getting $500 million.
Not anymore.
Well, no, that's right. Thank God,
Not
man.
anymore.
Because here I am working 31 years out schlepping, trying to sell ads on my shows. Been very successful, thank God above. But I mean, I'm going, why should they be given all this dough and me not, you know?
Yeah, and look, we said there's enough TV stations and radio stations to go and compete. There's a different world when NPR and PBS began. But the world has changed.
Okay, so anything that's upper on your mind right now that you want to discuss?
Well, one of the things that I think is just such common sense, and I can't believe the Democrats are fighting it. Why are we not passing the SAVE Act, which says only Americans vote in American elections, and you have to show an ID before you vote?
You have to have ID to drive.
To get on a plane, anything,
Get
right?
on a plane.
And they say it's racist or sexist to do this. They're saying that married women can't vote. You're telling, I mean, or African Americans won't be able to vote. I mean, that's a sexist and racist comment.
That's actually a racist comment.
Right?
They're saying that they're whatever.
Yeah, and so I look, in 14 states right now, you don't have to show an ID to vote. In some states, you can vouch for other people. I mean, the basis of our democracy is the legitimate election, right?
Well, you have somebody with you today from the sheriff's office outside that door protecting you. And, you know, I believe in law and order.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to have mayhem, right? Congressman Haridopolis, I presume, I don't know, I forgot my phone, so I don't even know what time it is. But listen, you're great for stopping in here.
Yeah, I love hanging. Look, what I love about your show too, and we need more of it in media, is you're positive. You're uplifting, and that's what we need, because too much of politics is this knife fighting. Yeah. Let's elevate the conversation and empower the individual again, not government. And that's why I got back into politics. It was either I was going to yell at the TV or I'm going to go out and get engaged again. And I'm so excited to be back in politics.
Now, I'd like to ask you this. You know, we have Vero's Voice magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, my wife is Greek as you are.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd like to push this. I was thinking, wouldn't it be great? I don't know if you have the time or how could we work it out, but to have a small little piece that was in every month that maybe Mike Haridopolis' take on this historical fact or that historical fact or something. I don't know, just think about it, because that's your thing. I mean, you're a professor.
Well, one of the things I like actually doing the most, Brett, is when people come to visit me in Washington, if I've got a little gap in time, I'll give them a personal tour of the Capitol and tell them the story of the Capitol and why this. And to me, that's so interesting. Why don't we
come up there and I'll hire a cameraman or something, do video, and we'll take a video tour. Would that be cool?
That would be fantastic. I would love that, because and one of my favorite, we'll do it after hours, so it's really quiet. Great. It's a different feel after the place shuts down, after votes that take place around 7 o'clock, and you have this presence, like you're really standing on the shoulders of giants. You're in the building where all these amazing Americans.
Let's
do that. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be great. Okay. It's 8. Let's do it. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
So Congressman Haridopolis, you're doing a great job. 5 stars. You don't get any more than 10 stars, whatever, how many stars you want.
Well,
but anyway,
I love it.
Hottie Stove.
I love it.
Right?
You know you're Greek. I love it. I love it.
I fell in love with the Greek people.
Oh, they're fantastic.
I would suggest anybody, if you get a vacation, I waited until I was in my 50s to go. I went to Mykonos, went to Santorini, I'm flying back to America, and these hot tears are just rolling down my cheeks. I go, what happened? I fell in love with these people.
Absolutely. And the water there, it's just so blue and vibrant, and the food is so unique. I love it.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Anyway, God bless you.
God
be
great
with
to
you.
see
God bless America.
Mayor of the Airways. Love to be here.
All right,
thanks, brother.
Thank you very much. Hey, this is the mayor who loves you, baby.